WOCN Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 8 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Imagine you're at like a gathering of some sort. I was going to say party, but I don't want you to imagine a party. Just a gathering. You're just hanging out. Maybe you're in a shelter trying to get away from a storm. And you bump into a lady and she can tell you she's been with Elvis Presley. She lived in the same place as Leonard Bernstein and John Lennon. I think I would just stop and listen, right? Well,
I would, sure.
I know a lot of people in our town right now have come to our town because we're kind of in the safe zone, but they've come here from the east coast of the state trying to get away from Hurricane Dorian. Is that the name? I keep forgetting the name.
Yep.
So you are about to meet a lady who has exactly that kind of name-dropping power, I guess is a good way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
An amazingly gifted lady. Kathalynn Turner Davis is on the phone. She wrote the book called Kiss Me, Swami. She is herself a life coach, a spiritual counselor. She grew up, it says here, with an alcoholic mother. Oh my gosh, I hope I'm reading something right.
But she was real nice.
She was a nice alcoholic mother. Okay, good. An emotionally stunted ex-military father. That's what it says, right? A con artist brother. I wonder if he's still around listening. She survived a chronic bronchial infection. She is a beauty queen. And the book is an amazing timeline, I guess you might say, of a person who has gone through some amazing stuff in her life. And let's say good morning to Kathalynn Turner Davis. Good morning, Kathalynn.
Oh, good morning, and love and good energy to your beautiful state of Florida.
Where are you?
I am in California, in Los Angeles.
Oh my gosh, Robin and I are going to be there in 3 weeks.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're getting away from the storm. No, not really. We're just going out there.
Yeah.
So you have an amazing story to tell.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
So where did it start? Where was your childhood?
My childhood, I grew up in Maryland.
Okay.
And then after I had met a rock and roll singer, a sweet singer in the Miss American Beauty pageant, I decided to come to Los Angeles. Actually, not to be an actress, to see him. So my travels took me from Maryland to L.A., and I talk about my 3-year experience in Hollywood.
Do we know him, the singer?
Yeah, well, I might as well say his name because he's in the book. His name was Brian Hyland. Do you remember him?
Oh, wait, yes. What was the
weeny yellow polka dot bikini?
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
And Field with a Kiss. Oh, he was quite sweet and quite adorable. So it was a teenage kind of crush that brought me 3,000 miles away from home.
Wow.
Yeah.
But when it all fell apart, you didn't go back to Maryland.
I did not. I came also. I was invited to do the dating game. Do you remember that show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get picked?
Well, I picked.
Oh, you were the girl picking the guy. Okay.
Yeah.
How was the date?
Then, the date was okay. The date was fine. Actually, it was really a photo shoot. What they did, we went to Arizona for a day, and the photographer was the chaperone. And every minute we had to pose for pictures to advertise on the show. So, but it was.
Oh, really?
All my family and my high school friends got to see me on the dating game.
Well, that is cool.
Yeah, that was very cool.
So it's funny how a lot of actresses have the dating game in their resume. Is that by design? Does that happen a lot to a young lady, especially in those days?
I think those days. I think a lot of girls got on the show, especially aspiring actresses, which I became after I was there. I actually got very lucky because from that show, someone saw me and suggested that I go over to Paramount Studio and meet Gary Marshall and Jerry Belson, who was doing a TV series called Barefoot in the Park. and he set me up on an interview.
Wow.
And they ended up not doing the series, or doing it for one season, and they ended up using African American actors. So I wasn't right for the role, and they asked me to read for a movie called The Grasshopper with Jackie Bissett, and I ended up getting that part. So I stayed in L.A.
Well, that's exciting.
That's congratulations
So-
there. Jacqueline Bissett is huge.
Did you have an agent or somebody like that?
No, I didn't have an agent. I had nothing. They said, bring your headshot. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know what. But I learned fast.
Well, I thought it was wonderful that you had the support of your dad when you were going for your beauty queen auditions for competitions.
Yeah, I had full support of my father, and I actually had support of my mom, too. As I said, my mother drank from when I was 5 to around 11, and she stopped cold turkey. And then she, pulled herself together with the help. Mother's little helper pills here and there, I think. But
Right. Is she still here?
tranquilizers. No, unfortunately, she died in 1980. But she was a wonderful mother. After that, very loving, very supportive, and so I was lucky in many, many ways. Yeah, my father supported me for everything. He was really into it. Yeah.
So your bio says con artist brother. Is he still in your life?
No, we never knew what happened to him. He would constantly disappear, but who is in my life is a beautiful daughter that he left behind. And she actually designed the cover of my book.
Oh, my.
Is she interested in acting too?
No, she's a graphic designer.
So I don't want to leave out the gaps between then and now, but I'm just curious about one thing about now, because you have a book coming out today, and it's exciting to be an author, probably maybe on the same par as getting a part in a movie.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
So how are you feeling right now?
I'm so excited today.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with myself. I'm so glad I have this interview, because then I can talk. I can, I don't know what to do today. My daughter and I are going out tonight to celebrate. I want to say she helped me write the book, and Genevieve is a comedian and an actress. As a matter of fact, when I did the movie The Grasshopper, it was Gary Marshall and Jerry Belson, and Gary and I became lifelong friends. And that was one of the first movies Gary ever... He didn't direct it, but he produced it and wrote it. My daughter Genevieve was in Mother's Day, and as the full circle goes, that was the last movie Gary Marshall ever did. So I did one of the first, and she did the last.
Oh my gosh!
Oh my gosh!
It's amazing.
Yeah, and then we lost Gary a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And you are just so amazing, because we always hear these stories, from different actors, whether they're male or female, about, they need an agent, it was tough going and everything, and you just seem to fit right in. I mean, gosh, you were with Elvis, you lived in the Dakota with all these fabulous people, and I love your story about Paul Simon with his dog.
I want to hear that one. Let me hear that one.
Well, Paul Simon and I there was a little school down the street where the kids, mainly from the Dakota, went, and a couple of the buildings on Central Park West, and it was called the Morrell School. And so Paul Simon would walk Harper, his beautiful little boy, to school sometimes, and I would be walking my little ones. So we'd talk on the way. But the dog story was not Paul Simon, it was Leonard Bernstein.
Oh, okay. I got them mixed up.
And Leonard Bernstein lived in the Dakota, and Paul Simon lived next door, right?
Well, Paul Simon had lived in the building, but when I moved in, he was divorcing.
Oh,
so
okay.
he moved to another building, but his ex-wife, Peggy, was there. And he was always visiting because he had a son with her, a beautiful boy, yeah. So he was around a lot because of Harper, but the maestro was my direct neighbor. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Did you hear things through the walls?
I heard music sometimes, but those walls were pretty thick. Those were thick walls. They were very well built.
What years were that? Were you there when John Lennon was shot?
I certainly was.
Oh my gosh!
And I had just gone to John and Yoko gave Sean birthday parties at the Tavern on the Green, and I was invited with my little babies. And so 2 months, actually almost to the day that John was shot, I was sitting next to him at lunch. And John had just turned 40, I believe even that day, and Sean was turning 5. And John Lennon and I were having an argument about music schools. And he said, I said I was going to send my little ones to music school. And he said, why would you do such a thing? I mean, nobody sends their kids to music school. Don't do that. So we went back and forth, and I finally said, look, if they had an icon as a father like you to teach them music, I wouldn't have to. And he said, I'll teach them music. Sent them over.
Oh, my gosh.
I know, 2 months to the day he was shot outside of the Dakota.
Well, that's so sad. But such a cool story. So you were kind of friends with him.
Well, I wasn't, friends, but
Right.
I had been in Japan with my ex-husband, and he was a cardiac surgeon, and he was getting talks, and John and Yoko happened to be there at the same time in the same hotel. So Sean would play with Vanessa in Japan, and then we would say hello to each other, but I can't say we're friends.
No, it's cool. It's cool enough for me. I just find that kind of fascinating. It's kind of like I said in the intro. If I bumped into you at the shelter here, staying away from the storm, and all of a sudden I started hearing these stories, I would feel like I hit a gold mine. And no, really. And I think that's what the book is. I have a theory about us human beings. I think. Okay. Do you know you have, and I have, and Robin has, every human being has this amazing ability to be able to differentiate one face from another. We are really good at faces, and yet they're kind of the same. Yeah. Two eyes, a nose, and a mouth, right?
Interesting, yeah.
So we're really good at that, and I guess it's just something God gave us the ability to be good at looking at faces and know one from another. I can look at my friend's face that I hadn't seen since he was a child and know it's him. Because this happened in New York. I bumped into him and I said, I know who you are. Mm-hmm. We hadn't seen each other since we were kids.
Amazing.
But the same thing is true with lives. And in your book, your life, and we're so fascinated by each other's lives. In my own opinion, I would rather read a biography or a memoir than I would a fictional novel.
Well, I always read them, too. I really always enjoyed memoirs or bios. I agree with you. I'd love to know about people's lives.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I talk about in the book, as a young child, I wished upon a star every night. So I began the book with starlight, star bright, first star I see tonight. Wish I may, wish I might have the wish I wish tonight. And every night from around 5 years old, I'd find, if there wasn't a star in the sky, I'd imagine one, and I'd make these wishes. And as a young child, you go, okay, I wish I'd be a movie star. I wish I'd be in movies. Oh, I wish I'd be on TV. Oh, I wish I had, a pretty house and all this stuff. And I did it every single night for years and years and years. And I talk about, I program my subconscious mind. Because somehow that imagining every single night, it just unfolded. Every single thing I had wished upon during that period of, during my life. everything. And so, in some ways people say you've been very lucky, but in other ways, I was programmed in that way, but then there was another, with the other stuff going on with the brother and the mother drinking, I also had a lot of low self-esteem to overcome. Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So is that what prompted you to leave the life of acting and these wonderful people and got you into a family spotlight, and then you started helping others?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that, when my fourth child, I left New York. And I talk about that and going to Greenwich, Connecticut, where I describe as the top dogs of Wall Street bring their families. And I'm thrown into that world of fundraising and entertaining, and I didn't know anything. And I had to learn fast. So one of the things I talk about was, some people find God in the wilderness. Some find him in prison, but man, I had to find God in Greenwich, Connecticut, or die.
No, you're amazing.
So, I talk about that experience because a lot of people wonder about that kind of world. So, yeah, it was very fortunate to be there, and it was a nice place to raise my children.
So, in addition to giving us an opportunity to be a fly on your wall and kind of watch you throughout your life, are you also sharing with us the things that you believe made you who you are, and kind of like the what's that thing called, the law of attraction, that kind of thing?
Well, I don't know if the law of attraction. What I do is I do a method called the Sedona method, which I talk about in the book, and I think life is about letting go. And what do we let go of? We let go of those thoughts and those feelings that keep us stuck in life or make us unhappy. You can't be positive and have that kind of law of attraction thing come to you if you're angry or you're sad or you're in deep depression or something like that. Now, we're not talking about a clinical depression here.
Right.
We're talking about, people who just get upset all the time, or, these feelings have to be let go of in order to think positive. So I talk about letting go a lot in the book. And, there are times when I didn't even know what I was doing as a child, where certain wonderful things happened after this letting go. And everyone does it. Everyone lets go. Everyone knows how to let a feeling go, or it just happens automatically, and then things seem to clear up. So I talk a lot about that in the book. And, the book is really about my quest for self-actualization. It's set against, the most exciting places and times in American history, I think. Hollywood in the late 60s, the sexual revolution, New York in the 70s, which also included the human potential movement. And then it still had the great acting teachers, Stella Adler, Lee Strasberg, Stanford Meisner. So that energy was still in New York. And then on to that financial world and being thrown into that world. But it is a story about letting go and finding the balance between the material and spiritual worlds. And I talk about, in India and in Israel, coming face to face with the Swami within me.
I think that's a pretty amazing revelation that you have. You talk about the science of mind and the Sedona method, but I think you have your own.
Ah, that's sweet of you. Well, you begin to let go of all of it that you learn, and you see that it's not out there, that everything that you need and all of that is in you. And the Swami is not that guru or that person or that teacher. When you've lived as long as I have, you begin to say, well, wait a minute, it's right here. Took me a long time, by the way, and I still need to let go of a lot of stuff at times. But.
If we saw some old footage, like 8mm movies of you as a little girl, do the things we see, the things you were playing with at that time, resemble what you ended up doing as an adult?
Well, that's an interesting question. Well, I played with dolls a lot, and I have 4 children.
That's a good one.
I love to dress them up.
Did you get behind the curtain in the living room and walk out as you were on a talk show or something, or?
No, but I imagined myself up there on the stage getting that Oscar. Well, that didn't happen. But I didn't imagine it enough. I did imagine myself kissing Elvis that I talk about, and I have a cute Elvis story in the book.
You kissed Elvis?
I did.
Tell me that story. I want to hear that one.
Oh. No, well, I lived in this little apartment in West Hollywood, and one night I had my door open to let some air in, and I was playing Elvis records. Remember, they were records at the time.
Right.
And this guy walked past my door, and he popped his head in, and he goes, "Why, hello there, I'm Charlie Hodge." He said, "Thank you for playing my boss's music." And I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Yeah, I'm Charlie. I'm backup singer for Elvis and one of his best friends. Again, thank you for playing his music." And I go, "Okay, yeah, sure, you're welcome." And he said, he came in, and I had some trophies there from the baton contest and all that stuff. And he said, "Would you like to meet Elvis?" And I said, Sure. So to make a long story short, Saturday night came, and we went to Elvis's house. But as we were going in, there were these beautiful gates, and they had these music notes on them, and there were fans standing outside of the gate. And I began to get really nervous, and it hit me that I was actually going to meet Elvis Presley. Now, you know, he came out when I was around 7, and I idolized him. His pictures all over my
How old
wall.
were you at this time?
I was 20.
Okay.
And anyway, we started to go in, and I said, look, Charlie, I don't think I can do this. I'm really nervous. And he said, oh, no, Elvis is great. You'll love him. And I just described in the book, I walked in this foyer, and this housekeeper came up, and she took my $6 shawl. And I felt something on the side of me, and I turned around and looked, and there was this gorgeous creature coming at me with this cold black hair and these sideburns and these blue eyes and this smile that could knock your socks off. And he stood in front of me and took my hands and said, hi, I'm Elvis Presley. I thought, oh, I know who you are, you know. And I, you know, hello. And then Charlie said she's nervous. So I made up, I said, well, you know, when I was little, I was on a bus in Washington, D.C., and I was only young, and the teenagers were on the bus and all that. And I thought, gee, they're very lucky because I'm too young to have Elvis, and they could go out with him. And he laughed. And then later on, I pulled out a cigarette, and he pulled up a lighter. And as I went in to light my cigarette, he pulled it away. And then he went in again, and he pulled it away again. And then he went in again, and as he was lighting my cigarette, he looked at me and he said, do you still think you're too young? And you gotta read the book to hear
Oh,
that.
no.
Yeah, I love that.
no.
I love that.
Oh, no. Oh, I think an old man was taking advantage of a young girl is what I think right there.
Oh, that old man, but it goes from there, but it's a fun story.
What a great way to sell the book. Oh, I love that. The book is called Kiss Me, Swami, The Spiritual Education of a Beauty Queen. Kathalynn Turner Davis is the author. What a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and stay safe.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. The Prime Minister of the Bahamas calls the destruction from Hurricane Dorian a historic tragedy. 13,000 homes are reported to be destroyed. At least 5 people